This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 4th of May 2021 and I am 2J.
I am CS.
And I am JM. In case you missed the headlines this morning, here they are. In the Daily Nation, Karibu SULUHU, why visit is a big deal. In the Standard, guns trained on Orengo as ODM battle explodes.
Wow.
And in the Star, the men behind DP RUTO's 2022 presidential bid.
Interesting.
Yes.
I'm really interested to hear about what's happening in the Standard, but before we get there,
yes.
I want to take a quick look at the Daily Nation because it tells us that President SULUHU arrived into the country this morning for a 2-day state visit, during which she will receive the honor of a 21-gun salute reception at State House, and she will also give an address to a joint sitting of Parliament tomorrow. SULUHU will also hold bilateral talks aimed at strengthening the cordial relationships between the two countries. Just for some background, Kenya is the biggest investor in Tanzania, whose exports to the country have been rising in the last 10 years. Over 530 Kenyan companies set base in Tanzania, creating more than 56,000 jobs for the people of Tanzania. And in the age of COVID, we all know that regional trade is more important than ever. But I actually want to look at the big picture importance of this visit, and it is premised on two things. The tense history of our relations between the two countries, but number two, the legacy that Uhuru Kenyatta is building for himself as a supporter of trade, infrastructure, African democracy, not just democracy, African democracy, and regional unity. So the history of Kenya-Tanzania relations, I think we know, has been a roller coaster, to put it kindly. We haven't always seen eye to eye. But SULUHU's visit indicates the end of a hard line era and an opportunity for Uhuru to turn on the charm offensive. But even more importantly than flexing his diplomatic proficiency, Uhuru Kenyatta is teaching us lessons on how a win-win strategy can be successful at home, but also abroad. So looking inwards, the heart of BBI is doing away with the winner-takes-all political standard, expanding the executive and shifting us away from a Ferrari presidency to a Matatu presidency, increases the seats for all communities to participate and to have a voice. In my opinion, this is actually superior to any half-baked ideals on bottom-up economics. And diplomatically, the president is taking a page from Sun Tzu on how to wield soft power. Where war falls into the category of hard power, soft power focuses on power relations based on common interests, cooperation, and building trust over time. The steps that the president is taking are far bigger than most of us can even understand.
That's right.
Let's look at 3 events in the past year, for example. The UK-Kenya trade agreement, Uhuru's meeting with Tshisekedi in DRC, and SULUHU's visit. When I speak of big picture, this is what I mean. We are speaking of connecting Tanzanian and Congolese products to Mombasa and the world. And at the same time, ensuring that free trade in the region is sustainable. This is the future. In my view, the Kenyatta administration is looking beyond today, looking beyond 2022, and is positioning Kenya to maintain a leadership position on the continent.
Very well put.
Welcome, Madam President. We are happy to have you here. Our Deputy President was invited to attend your state visit, but I guess he didn't show up. Maybe if he had taken some notes out of your book, he would have learned to be a dedicated deputy like yourself.
Absolutely. So well put. Very well put. Now on to the Standard. The Standard is saying that there's a chance that Orengo is up to no good. He's doing mischief. So, is Baba Man on his political deathbed? And what is James Orengo up to? First, some history to put Orengo's recent actions into perspective. When Raila's father, Jaramogi Odinga, died, he crowned as his successors 2 young men, Kijana Wamalwa, who was voted in as the national chairman of the Ford Kenya Party, and James Orengo, who was installed as first vice chairman. But Raila Odinga, who felt that he should have been the rightful heir, ousted the two and installed himself as the party's national chairman. This was in 1995. He also replaced James Orengo with a nondescript Kikuyu fellow by the name of Nginyo Karaoke. Now, Orengo was out. He was down rather, but he was not out. And in 2002, he aggressed Raila by running for the presidency on an SDP ticket, but he lost miserably. By the year 2007, Orengo had been beaten into submission. He swore the Baba Man loyalty pledge. It would appear, however, that Orengo may have forgiven Baba Man, but did not forget his treachery of 1995. So, what he really wants now is to get even with Baba. He wants to claim back what was rightfully his.
Yes.
He wants to inherit the Luo nation. And you know what? Orengo's timing is impeccable.
Indeed.
Here is why. Rumors of Raila being gravely ill have not only been doing their rounds, they were confirmed when he appeared at State House, giving a testimony of how he pulled through COVID. You see, in the world of politics, news of illness is not pitied, it is exploited. And that is what Orengo is doing here. In the words of Professor Bruce Mosquita, impending death often induces political death.
Wow.
So, yes, we can confirm that Raila is on his political deathbed, and Orengo may just prevail. And let me illustrate how this is likely to play out by way of a story from history. In the year 1997, the Congolese revolutionary, or pseudo-revolutionary as some people put it, Laurent Kabila, took advantage of Mobutu Sese Seko's poor health to march to Kinshasa. And the gamble paid off. Mobutu, it turned out, was dying of prostate cancer. And apparently everybody knew it. Mobutu's military, his key backers, his financiers, simply refused to fight back as Kabila's insurgents captured more and more territory of the DRC. Mobutu's erstwhile backers knew that their own future would be brighter by abandoning their dying patron. This is a sentiment best captured in the cliche phrase, "The king is dead, long live the king."
Thank you for that background, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. I'd also like to discuss the Standard, guns trained on Orengo. A similar story also appeared in The Nation on Sunday, with the headline, James Orengo's new stance on BBI draws fire from top ODM leaders. As I read these news articles, it reminded me of a story about St. Dominic, who as a missionary was frustrated that he was unable to preach to German pilgrims because he did not understand German. And so he said to Brother Bertrand of Paris, let us pray that we may understand them so that we may share the good news with them. The easier thing might have been to pray for that the pilgrims understand them. What St. Dominic said is quite similar to a prayer attributed to St. Francis, in which he prayed that the great divine master grant that he first seek to understand before seeking to be understood. Senior Counsel Orengo is being misunderstood. And this is because, in my view, there are two conversations going on in the Senate and in Parliament in general.
Yes.
One conversation is a shouting match between those who are trapped in a binary mental framework to pass or not to pass BBI. And the minds of those confined to binary reasoning is informed by the transient politics of the day, such as political factions in 2022. There is, however, another more transcendent conversation going on. It is a conversation about country and what is good for country. It is a conversation being had by men and women who are saying, yes, let us pass the bill, but even as we do, let us be very mindful about what we are putting on record and the precedent we are setting. Let posterity find that when they look into the annals and archives of history to hold us accountable, that our reasoning was sound. This is why the JLAC committee, even where it has highlighted issues or concerns, has still concluded that the BBI bill should be passed. Senator Orengo has been consistent that we should be careful not to advance the argument that Parliament simply has a ceremonial role or that it is a rubber stamp. I agree with him. Parliament's role is not simply ceremonial. It is a delicate point to emphasize, but it would be irresponsible not to. let us separate issues. For instance, it is one thing to say Parliament should not amend the bill, but it is a different thing to say that it cannot. Let us not make arguments that are convenient for today and then find ourselves setting a slippery precedent. Let us have the courage to advance truth that may be inconvenient even today. In fact, I disagree with JLUC's view that the 70 additional constituencies are unconstitutional. Such a statement is offensive to the sovereignty that derives from the people. This is why Senator Sakaja, in his JLUC minority report, highlighted that the use of the word unconstitutional is alarmist.
So true.
If you recall, yesterday, we at the Fifth Estate stated that the word unconstitutional is being misused. Senator Sakaja's report makes an incisive distinction on the difference between allocation of constituencies and delimitation and demarcation of boundaries. Article 89 empowers the IABC to review boundaries.
Absolutely.
It does not give it the power to allocate constituencies. That would amount to constitution making, which is a power that belongs to the people of this great republic.
Preach, brother.
Such a good point.
Absolutely.
And I feel like recently I've been getting so frustrated because, as you're saying, people are using alarmist terms or taking things out of context, and the public just hears a portion of it and runs with an incorrect, version of thoughts. So I think, it's paramount and it's important that you people listen to us. There's wisdom on this table, if I just say so ourselves. Yes. What do you say?
Absolutely. We need to give a winning headline. And I think the Daily Nation, Karibu Suluhu, why visit is a big deal, is a good one to give it to.
I would agree.
Yeah. So I'm going to toss the star.
Yes.
I'm going to toss the standard. So we have a winning headline from the Daily Nation. And now, on to our final thought. But before we get there, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So what is our final thought?
And now, our final thought. This week is actually inspired by one single book entitled How to Lose a Battle, Foolish Plans and Great Military Blunders. It's actually edited by one person, a man by the name of Bill Fawcett. And this week we will dissect each chapter looking at different military blunders. And today we start with chapter 2, The Exodus as a Military Mistake, written by Brian Thompson. So history is littered with horribly bad military decisions, whether because of a lack of planning, miscalculation, a leader's ego, spy infiltration, or just a really stupid idea in the first place. Each military defeat is fascinating to dissect. And this book covers more than 35 astonishing and avoidable disasters, both infamous and obscure, about the most costly military missteps ever taken. So this chapter asks how the Israelites managed to escape the finest military unit of their time. The first 18 chapters of the book of Exodus in the Bible are devoted to the story of the deliverance of Israel out of Egypt, which is a house of bondage, the exodus from Egypt, and the journey to Mount Sinai under the leadership of Moses. The second half of the book tells of the covenant that was established between God and the Israelites at Sinai and promulgates laws for the ordering of Israel's life. But we begin with the deaths of Joseph and the ascension of a new Pharaoh that the Bible tells us did not know Joseph. And the implication is that previous pharaohs respected Joseph's role in saving their nation, while this new ruler had either no knowledge or no concern for this history. And so the Israelites could have been very comfortable. They had enjoyed a period of influence and prosperity in the times of Joseph, and they had the best land, and they could have very easily forgotten God and gotten complacent. But Exodus describes this explosive growth of the nation of Israel and the erosion of their relationship to Egypt. So Joseph's efforts in the past had saved Egypt from ruin, but generations later, and the drastic increase in their population is seen as a threat to the Egyptian people.
That's right.
So motivated by a combination of fear and disgust, the Pharaoh of that time brutally enslaves the people of Israel in an attempt to reduce their numbers. We know this effort fails, and the passages in the Bible show Pharaoh resorting to kill every firstborn male in an effort to control these people.
That's right.
But of course, the plagues force Pharaoh to release the Israelites to leave. However, Pharaoh had a change of mind, and the Israelites were an important source of cheap labor, and their departure would cause a severe economic impact on the Egyptian economy. For this reason, when the Israelites fled, they did it at great speed because they feared that Pharaoh would change his mind. So as soon as they left, as expected, we all know this story, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds and began pursuing the escaping Israelites with a large and sophisticated army. But I think, as the boys are going to tell us, this didn't mean very much, did it?
No, it didn't.
Yeah.
Now, according to the author, the problem and fatal flaw in the plan by the army of Pharaoh was the delay in pursuit.
Yes.
And this is because the delay translated into a change of terrain. Now, in the military, a change of terrain is a mistake of biblical proportions. No matter how good your army is, if the ground conditions are unfavorable, you are finished. So this delay in pursuit that may have resulted from hesitation or the time it took to mobilize the army or the confusion caused by the plagues or even the loss of so many Jewish scribes and assistants is what allowed the Jews to get away.
Yeah.
Here's how it played out. The author paints a picture for us. On the one hand, you have the slaves traveling on foot with the occasional minor beast of burden bearing their meager possessions. On the other hand, you have the pursuers, armored charioteers, mastering strong horses with maximum agility that allowed them to make up for lost time.
Yeah.
But that all changed when they got to the seabed. The chariots, with their own weight and the weight of their armor-laden drivers over wheels designed for speed on sand or stone, sank into the soft ground. The chariot-mounted units, the most elite, we're told, of all Egyptian forces, slowed to a standstill. And what the author actually says here is, no, it wasn't even a standstill, it was a sink still.
Yeah.
So one by one, they got bogged down in the marsh and mud, and their mission was basically thwarted. In military terms, this is known as the encirclement stratagem. The aim of this stratagem is to make it impossible for a defeated opponent to escape by exploiting the isolated position that they have either accepted voluntarily or that they have been enticed into, which is what happened to Pharaoh and his army in this instance. The stratagem can only succeed if the enclosure is impenetrable. Now, what the Egyptians should have done is to retreat. You must never put your head in the tiger's mouth. One must always enter another area cautiously and always ensure you have a secure way out. That's the lesson we learned.
They did not learn. Yeah.
We're going to mass today. We have to pray. Today I'm taking you to church.
Take us.
Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, known as the Pentateuch. And he was able to write this because, having been a former prince of Egypt, he was university trained. The Exodus was the second book he wrote. And to borrow from James' last 2 words, the word Exodus literally means way out in Latin. And so some people may see this story as a Bible story that may or may not have taken place sometime near the beginning of time. But for the people of Israel, this battle, so to speak, is of national significance. The Exodus marked the beginning of their national history. They received their political freedom and became a sovereign nation in their own right. Though they did not yet have a land, they were a nation with a name of their own, Israel. So central was this event that ever since then its celebration has been written into their national calendar, just as we celebrate independence on 12th December. So every March, April, the Jews celebrate the Exodus, and in this way the battle has significance for the Jewish nation and for Israel as a nation state. But the battle also has significance for the Christian nation. The celebrated Reverend Matthew Henry once wrote that there are more types of Christ in the book of Exodus than in any other book in the Old Testament. In the New Testament, in the Gospel of John, chapter 5, verse 39, Jesus says, "Search the scriptures, for they bear witness of me." And in verse 46, Jesus goes on to say that Moses wrote about me. Now, one of the most striking facts about this crossing of the Red Sea is that it happened on the 3rd day after the Passover lamb was killed. Furthermore, the book of Exodus tells us the very hour when the Passover lamb had to be slaughtered, that is 3 p.m. On the third day after that, the Israelites were liberated when they crossed the Red Sea. The nexus of this battle of sorts with the New Testament is that Jesus died at 3 p.m., the time the Passover lambs were being slaughtered.
Oh, wow.
This is why Christ is called the Lamb of God. And on the third day, he rose from the dead. And for the Christian nation, this is victory over death is a claim to spiritual liberation.
Wow.
But allow me to conclude by briefly going back to this moment in Exodus. When the people of Israel realized Pharaoh had changed his mind about letting them go and was now in pursuit of them, they were so scared that they asked Moses, "Is it because there were no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness?"
Yeah.
And one can understand their fear. An estimated 2.5 million people, mostly on foot, unarmed, undisciplined, and they knew the strength of the enemy and their own weakness. Some accounts tell us that to one side was impassable rocky terrain, and on the other side were forts and garrisons along the Egyptian border.
Yeah.
Before them was the sea, and behind them were the Egyptians, so that there was no way open to them but upwards from where the deliverance came. And it is here that perhaps my favorite verses in all of Exodus comes in. Chapter 14, verses 13 and 14, Moses says to the people, "Fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord."
Yeah.
And verse 14, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still."
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, it was all for the glory of God.
Yeah.
Those impossible
And
conditions.
I think the biggest thing, why this is a great military blunder, is the way in which that, might of the Egyptian army was completely shattered. Not a single person was left alive to go and report what had happened. God just wiped them away. So, what a blunder.
Absolutely. So today we had a winning headline from the Daily Nation, Karibu SULUHU. And now, the Greek proverb for William RUTO. It is disgraceful to stumble against the same stone twice. He rebelled against Moi and got a curse. Now he rebels against Uhu. Twice he is cursed.